Let's spend a few minutes today and look at how teams function. Team development is a hot topic, and it's generally agreed that the more developed a team is, the more effective it's going to be in all kinds of situations. But that leaves the question of what exactly is a developed team? Well, based on research, we can safely say that a developed team has at least three characteristics. The first is self-awareness. A good team, a highly developed team, looks at its own processes, examines its own strengths and weaknesses, and is prepared to make adjustments for improvement. The second characteristic of a developed team is that it increases rational goal-directed behavior and reduces emotional reactive behaviors. In other words, the team doesn't waste time on issues that are not productive and directly related to its effectiveness. The third characteristic of a developed group is that they actualize their potential. That is, the members of a developed team are aware of their own strengths and play upon those strengths to increase personal productivity and team effectiveness. What's the biggest barrier to group development? In one word, it's people. This isn't too surprising if you think about all the ways that people can be different. I mean, it's difficult to always get along with people that you know and care about, much less people that you're put together with in a group or a team and expected to be productive. People are simply different in a lot of different ways, and these differences can impact the team in a lot of negative ways. The conclusion can often be it's simply easier to work alone than it is in a team. But a developed team learns how to overcome these differences and use them to their advantage. As a team develops, it moves from a perspective of me to a perspective of we. In the beginning, team members have a very egocentric perspective. They process what goes on with the team in terms of the extent to which it meets their own needs or satisfies their own agenda. Over time, this perspective changes. Team members identify with the team and they see themselves as part of a larger, identifiable, meaningful whole. The team needs and goals become as important as the individual goals. This process of moving a team from me to we is extremely important. In fact, it's at the heart of team development. What you need to realize is that you can manage this process. You can do things to create the kind of positive team experience that you want to have. Specifically, we're talking about developing a sense of identity, trust among team members, structure within the team, and leadership. Let's look at each of these factors. Managing the process by developing a sense of team identity. A sense of identity gives the team a sense of purpose, something for the team members to commit to rally around. Your team members should actively discuss questions about identity. Who do they want to be? What do they have in common? Why are they here? What are their goals? What do they want to accomplish? You can also manage the process by developing a sense of trust. One of the quickest ways to develop a sense of trust among team members is through self-disclosure. Put simply, it's difficult to trust people you don't know. You need to know something about your teammates. Teammates need to spend some time sharing personal information and getting to know one another, because it's this information and this knowledge that develops the trust that helps the team later on meet certain challenges. Also, a sense of trust is developed via follow-through. In short, team members simply need to do what they say they're going to do. One of the quickest ways to violate a sense of trust is to not do what you say you're going to do. Teams can also manage the development process by developing structure. Student teams in particular tend to just let things happen because you're busy doing all sorts of other things. Be more proactive in managing your own processes by creating a structure. Two ways to do this are by adopting team roles and team ground rules. Team roles are important because without them, team members don't know what their responsibilities are. They may not understand who is accountable for doing what. This slide shows some of the more common team roles that student teams adopt: coordinator, scribe, timekeeper, devil's advocate, so on and so forth. You'll have to identify these roles as a part of your team development once you get a feel for what assignments your team will be responsible for, what roles you might need to meet these assignments, and the strengths that individual team members bring to the team in terms of being able to adopt roles that they'll be effective at. Ground rules are also very important for developing structure. Ground rules simply state explicitly how you intend to work together as a team. It's worth the time and effort to explicitly develop and state these ground rules, and the team agrees upon ground rules like, how are we going to communicate with each other? Some of us may prefer personal email. Some of us may want to use Blackboard. Some people want to use cell phones. You need to agree how you're going to communicate, how often, how are you going to have meetings, what kind of meetings. Will you use agendas? Will you use video conferencing and chat rooms? Will the team agree to set its own internal deadlines? How are you going to make team decisions? Will it be through consensus or voting? It takes a little time up front to address these questions, but these ground rules provide the structure that will help you avoid unnecessary conflict as you go through the semester. Managing the process also includes addressing issues around leadership. Typically in student teams, there is no governance structure or hierarchical authority pre-imposed. You're simply put in a team and asked to do certain things. So the team is left to deal with issues around leadership and influence and decision making. Now, teams do this in various ways. Some will designate a leader. Sometimes a leader simply emerges in a team. Some teams will plan shared leadership and explicitly state that for certain projects or certain periods of time, various team members will adopt a leadership role. It really doesn't matter which approach you decide as a team that you're most comfortable with, whether it be a designated leader or shared leadership. Probably what's more important is to realize that the leader, in this sense, team leadership is a little bit different than what we're talking about in a typical organizational hierarchy. A team leader is more focused on coordination rather than authority. A team leader wants to seek input from all team members, wants to promote involvement, empowerment, make sure that team members make decisions, wants to provide direction towards team goals. The team leader is really more of a team coordinator position. Now, as you manage the process, as you work to establish an identity, build structure through roles and ground rules, and as team members begin to trust one another and identify with the team, the team moves from a me perspective to a we perspective. Team members feel safer with one another, and you adopt procedures and processes that move the team towards accomplishing its tasks and accomplishing its goals. Some of the things that become very important in this next phase of team development are communications, feedback, performance monitoring, citizenship behaviors, and continuous improvement. Let's take a minute and look at some of these, because you'll be dealing with these as the semester progresses. Enhanced communications and coordinations. You need to establish your communication patterns so that you can efficiently approach and accomplish tasks, and do so in a way that enhances team relationships, particularly as tasks become more complex, and they will as we move through the semester. Team members need to be very diligent in exchanging clear and concise information in a timely manner. It's very important that you acknowledge the receipt of information so that people know that you know what's going on, that a correct understanding, a common understanding, can be confirmed. In other words, everybody's on the same page. Team members need to share information and ask for assistance. Constructive feedback also becomes a critical part of managing the process of team development. Team members need to feel safe and comfortable expressing their true ideas and feelings. You need to be able to openly share your thoughts and ideas without fear of recrimination. In fact, the expression of thoughts and ideas, the diversity of opinions and perspectives has to be explicit. All team members have the responsibility for encouraging input from other team members and providing positive, supportive, constructive feedback. Again, as tasks become more complex, it's absolutely critical that team members coordinate their activities. Okay? This is going to require greater communication. You're going to really need to stay in touch with one another, to help one another with tasks, upcoming deadlines, remembering ground rules and obeying those ground rules, status updates. Again, making sure that information flow is easy, it's efficient, everyone knows what's going on, everyone's on the same page. Truly effective teams demonstrate what we call citizenship behaviors. And it's simply a citizenship behavior by a team member is simply looking for the opportunity to help a team member beyond typical task or role requirements. Volunteer for assignments. Ask teammates if they need some help. Look for people who might be struggling, not because they're incompetent or inept, but because circumstances simply are working against them. With citizenship behaviors, team members come together with the primary focus of getting the job done. And finally, effective teams recognize the need for continuous improvement, and they have a commitment to excellence. Now, what does that look like exactly? Well, a team that knows its members well enough, know their individual strengths and weaknesses, play to those strengths, recognize and value the differences that team members bring to the team, use those differences to enhance performance, a willingness to assume various roles and responsibilities as needed, engaging in citizenship behaviors to help the team, and unconditional trust and commitment to the team. Now, before we end, it's worth noting the common stages of team development. First recognized in 1965 by Tuckman when he proposed these 4 stages: forming, norming, storming, and performing. We speak of these stages as if there's a linear format that a team follows these stages in a direct line. You begin with forming, you go to norming, then storming, then performing, and you don't leave one stage or begin one stage until you finish with another. And that's not really true. Forming, norming, storming, and performing, behaviors that reflect those stages can occur at various times throughout the stages of a team's development. Generally speaking, forming and the early stages, forming and early norming, and even some storming, deal with membership issues and membership questions. Later on, issues around norming and performing and perhaps some storming are more likely to be focused on performance issues. But the key is to recognize that at any point a team might be displaying behaviors that reflect one or more of these stages. Teams typically are most concerned about the storming stage because they feel that that's where they have the most trouble and it's the most difficult stage to get through. And often teams attribute storming issues to personality differences. Now, if you do that, you're painting yourself in a corner, because if indeed the conflict that the team is experiencing is due to personality differences, truthfully, what are the chances you're going to change a teammate's personality? Not very good. Well, fortunately, most of the storming issues that you may experience have little to do with personality. Generally, what happens is that storming occurs because the team did not successfully manage the process during team development. the things that we have talked about already. No ground rules, or you adopted ground rules but chose to ignore them. Team members didn't consider the roles that they would play, so that there's ambiguity regarding responsibility or accountability for different tasks. There's no planning, there's no scheduling, there's problems around communication because the team never addressed exactly how they would communicate with one another, or how often, or how they would meet, or what those meetings would look like. And there's a lack of meaningful participation, differences in work styles that were not addressed, and team members are inflexible in their perspective. In other words, they're still processing too much from an egocentric perspective, and they're not putting the team's goals ahead of their own. If you have any questions about team functioning and team development and the processes and practices that we've talked about, feel free to send me an email. I appreciate your time. Thanks.